Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and continue.
That was the beginning and the end. I would say an end. It's not really the end because the story continues even till today. But that is not the subject of today's talk. From glory he came and back to glory he went. But our talk today is, the subject is what happened in between, the display of Shakti, the power which he gave us, which we are benefiting from even today, standing here, talking here about him. So what did he do? The government of India has recognized Vivekananda's birthday, 12th of January on the English calendar, as the National Youth Day. And truly, he's an icon for the youth. It is in one sense, it's sad that we don't get to see Vivekananda at 60. We can't think of Vivekananda at 80. But for us, Vivekananda always remains that young person at the age of 39, forever immortal as that person. And truly, he embodies this spirit of youth. Imagine what he did. He came to this country in 1893, the World Parliament of Religions, and by 1902 he was gone. In 10 years, in less than 10 years, the tremendous amount of work, he changed the world. He changed the Western world, he changed the East India. He changed the course of world history. And in 10 years, he was done. And if that's not the spirit of youth, then what is? When he came to the World Parliament of Religions, I will not tell the whole story, but it's just how amazingly Sister Nivedita writes about it, when Vivekananda stood up to speak at the World Parliament of Religions. By the way, it was 9/11. Here in New York and throughout the world, especially here in New York, 9/11 means something else to us. It means violence, destruction, and terrorism, and hatred in the name of religion. And the answer to this problem was given more than 100 years ago in 1893 in the World Parliament of Religions on the same date, 11 September 1893. What is the answer to hatred and to religious fanaticism? Vivekananda, as if he's giving the answer 100 years before this terrible aggression. When he stood up to speak, Sister Nivedita writes, before him was, remember, it was the Universal Exposition. World Parliament of Religions was a part of the Columbian Exposition. So before him was the modern West in all its, modern means 1893. By the way, they wrote a best-selling book about 1893 Chicago, The Devil in the White City, I think. It's about, apparently there was a serial killer in the Columbian Exposition. When Vivekananda stood up to speak, before him in Chicago, it was the Columbian Exposition, it was the modern West. And Nivedita says not modern West, she says it was the modern world. And she's right. What was there is now the world, all over the world, it's that spirit. It was the latest inventions of science and technology, the latest discoveries of the natural world and of geography and of different cultures, all presented there in a grand exhibition. The energy, dynamism, the free thinking, the new ideas embodied in this new nation, America, at that time, that was in front of Vivekananda. And then Nivedita writes, behind him was 5 millennia, 5,000 years of patient development of one of the greatest stories of humanity, the story of spirituality. 5,000 years of patient development of spiritual life. Behind him was the sun-drenched, dusty roads of India upon which, these are her words, upon which have trodden for centuries and millennia so many sages and saints. And Vivekananda embodied that wisdom. She writes that when he stood up to speak, he did not speak about his master. He did not speak about Sri Ramakrishna or his particular view of religion. He spoke, as it were, for all of the development of Indian spirituality through millennia, for all that spiritual consciousness, as if he were a gateway to that. And in this, Nivedita writes, he became a meeting point not only of the East and the West, but also of the past and the future. At that point, they met.
I mean, this definitely was a gateway for people who, well, for the West, really, a gateway into Eastern spirituality, for sure. Because honestly, I hear more about Swami Vivekananda. Now, I won't say like throughout my life or anything, but at least in terms of these, more than Sri Ramakrishna. So I don't know whether I'm just picking, just strangely enough, Swami Vivekananda's videos and not Sri Ramakrishna's, but I do hear him more so, and perhaps maybe it's because he is the person that came to the West and that kind of put that foothold for the rest of, well, for example, Swami Sarvapriyananda, Swami Tadamananda, and anyone else who came to the United States. He's the one that anchored Eastern philosophy, and that all these people can come into the West.
New world today, especially in spiritual life, was born there. He spoke about, what did he speak about? He spoke about, first of all, the harmony of religions. It's not that one religion is true and others are false. Not that everybody has to be converted to my way of thinking. No, that all religions are true. And here he was echoing his master's words, Sri Ramakrishna's teachings. All religions are true. We are all wending our way to that one ultimate reality. And who is speaking this? Vivekananda, who has come from that realm of the absolute. We are all wending our way, all of human civilization, through various religions, not just religion, through all ways of life. That struggle which is going on, which we call civilization, which we call life itself, is moving. There's a purpose to all this. We are moving towards that absolute reality. He spoke about the divinity within us. Nivedita writes again, the two great teachings of Vivekananda. One is, in this vast world, the world of continuous change, in this world of death, there is one eternal life, there is one background, an unchanging, immortal reality, the background to this vast, multifarious world of continuous change, this flux. And in us, where we are all individuals, we seem to be all separate people in competition and clash with each other. But Vedanta says, we are not these bodies, we are not even these minds. We are spirit, we are that pure being. That reality which appears to us, this vast universe, that reality also we are. The great Vedantic equation, that thou art. This is the plank upon which Vivekananda stood, and he spoke. This is what he conveyed, the message he conveyed. And more than this, Nivedita says that he brought to the West the message of the divinity within each of us and the oneness of all existence. And she says that these ideas were there in ancient India. Even if Vivekananda had not lived, Gita and the Upanishads, they would have been there. But Vivekananda not only presented that old message in new words, but he did something more. She says, is it true that there was nothing new in his teachings? There was. To the old idea of the Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual Vedanta, the identity of the human and the divine, and the Vishishtadvaita, that all of this is one integral whole. We are all part of God. And Dvaita Vedanta, dualism, that there is God and we are there separate and we worship God. They seem to be different philosophies. And India, they were all these great schools of Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, which for 1,000 years from Shankara onwards, they have engaged in dialectical combat in debate. Which is the right interpretation of the Upanishads? Which is the right interpretation of the Gita? Vivekananda, Sister Nivedita says, Vivekananda gave us this idea that they are all developments of that one stream of thought. It's not that one is right or the other is wrong. They're all right. They're all developments of that one stream of thought originating from the Upanishads and the Gita. You can worship God as separate. I am a creature and God is the creator. I am human and God is divine. And I worship in temples and churches and mosques and synagogues and gurudwaras. In all these places, God can be worshipped in all special times, in special forms, in special names. God can be worshipped. The dualistic mode of worship of God is perfectly all right. It will take you to the absolute reality also. Or the one divine, not separate. All of it is pervaded by one divinity. All this entire universe and all of us. God dwells in all of us. We are all part of God. That too is correct. And then finally, neither you nor I, no individuality, no difference, one unlimited, undifferentiated mass of radiance, existence, consciousness, bliss. That is what you are, Tattvamasi. That is also true. From different perspectives, each of them is true, different spiritual realizations. Vivekananda often put it as a hierarchy. First dualism, then qualified monism, and then the identity. Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, Advaita. But actually Sri Ramakrishna never made such a hierarchy. He just said, in whichever way, you take a pie and you eat it in this way or that way, it still tastes the same. It still tastes sweet.
I do remember him talking about that. There's like three different ways of looking at it, I believe. It's, that I can't remember if it's the three major schools or I remember them just, each school placed their schools above the other schools. But they all kind of have, man, I can't remember, it's been a little bit. I guess it's all kind of like a progression. If I remember correctly, it's like progression, and of course I would say I'm more of a follower of Advaita Vedanta more than anything, more than the duality or Vedanta. Advaita. Advaita. Oh, I'm saying it right. But the non-duality versus duality. Although I may have a different perspective, but the idea is still the same. Is that you could say that we all are part of the universe. We're all part of the creation. We are the I won't say the cause, but the result of the creation, kind of. But we're not separate from it. We just so happen to be it, but just so happen to be it. I don't know if that makes. I mean, I don't know how to explain that, but it's just more along the lines of the fact that of what he's saying, that how we are all part of the great divine Brahman, and yet we still have this odd individual nature to it. Whereas my perspective would be, we're all part of this creation. Now you can call it divine or not. I just say creation, and yeah, we're all just so happen to be a part of it. So it's exactly the same in a lot of things. But the only thing is, I just don't know if it's divine or God or whatever. I don't know. To say just creation alone, not to say that there's some like a God behind it all. It's creation itself, that 100% no problem. But to say the creator, then we have a problem. Just because of, again, how Western religion has really kind of tainted certain words like spiritual or spirit or soul or spirituality to some degree, creator, etc., God or gods.
Then Sister Nivedita goes on to say the greatest teaching, the master key which will unlock all of Vivekananda's teachings. She says this is part of the simpler and still greater teaching, the still greater truth, that the many and the one are the same reality, seen by different seekers in different minds, mindsets, in different times, in different attitudes. What is the many and the one? The many is this universe. What is the one? There is God. And philosophy, theology, from the very beginning till now, has had this struggle. When you talk about God or Allah or Brahman or Shiva or Devi, or even if you don't believe in God, still talk about Buddha nature and Tathagata, Garbha, the Dharmakaya, whatever you talk about, the ultimate reality. Your philosophy says that there is this something which is an ultimate real. And that reality, what connection does it have with this world? Here is our life. There is what you're talking about. What's the relationship? What are we to that? Are we separate? Are we part of it? Or are we one with it? Various questions can be asked. And for that, this one and the many, multiple answers have come. And the religions of the world and the philosophers of the world have given various kinds of answers to this. Vivekananda, he comes and he says, one and the many are the same reality. I mean, just to take a quick survey, if you take the Nyaya Vaisheshika philosophers of ancient India, they said the one is real, there is a God, and the many are also real, separately. They were pluralists. There is a material universe, there are substances, we are all substances here. And their substances have qualities, and there are actions, dravya, guna, kriya, there are relationships. So they constructed a world, pretty much common sense, the way we experience the world, and they said this is it. And there is a God, Ishvara. That was, one is real, many are real, and they are separate.
Duality, okay.
Then comes the Sankhyan. One is Purusha, and the many they put it under another reality called Prakriti, nature. The nature alone becomes the many, and you are Purusha, consciousness. That's another way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it would be the one alone is real, and the many are appearances of that reality. The Advaitam. The Brahman alone is real, and the many are appearances of that.
I think this is what I was talking about earlier, the three different branches who, they see all of it, kinda, but the different levels, which is the one words, which he explained, which is kinda, it hasn't stuck to me, but obviously there's one that in many appearances, there's one, and there's many that are separate, and I can't remember that middle one he said, but that's the one I was thinking of. I believe that is what I was talking about. Because I think there was only three. If he goes to four, then maybe it's not.
That's another way of looking at it. What Vivekananda said was the many and the one are the same reality. And then what is the upshot of that? What is the conclusion? What follows from that? What follows from that is all of Vivekananda's great gifts to humanity. Nivedita says, if that is true, then it's not just religion which is spiritual, but our secular life also becomes spiritual. If it's the same reality. If your office and the temple are the same reality. If God and human beings are the same reality. If meditation and work are the same reality, then they cannot, not that one is spiritual and the other is not spiritual, it cannot be so. So she says, henceforth, no difference between the sacred and the spiritual. The sacred and the secular. No difference between the sacred and the secular. To labor is to pray. To have and hold as strict a trust as to quit and renounce. The office, the farmyard, the schoolroom, the shop, they are as fit a place for meeting of God and man as the meditation hall or the temple. It's not that you cannot meet God here, you can do it here, but you can do it there also. And she says, this is what made Vivekananda the great teacher of karma, action, not as divorced from jnana and bhakti, but as the expression of jnana and bhakti. So in traditional Advaita Vedanta or the traditional schools of Vedanta, karma, your active life, it was seen as a way of preparing you for spirituality, at most. It cannot lead you to God realization. But it will help you to develop yourself so you become fit for enlightenment. So karma was always given a lower rank. But in Vivekananda, it becomes the same rank as jnana and knowledge and meditation and devotion and work. His famous definition of spirituality, of religion, it is the manifestation of the divinity already within us. And you do it. How? You do it by philosophy. Philosophy means by the path of knowledge, jnana yoga. You do it by love, worship, the path of devotion, bhakti yoga. Do it by psychic control, he says, meditation, by the path of Raja Yoga, or by service, by work and service, Karma Yoga, by one or more or all of these, and be free. That is all of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches, they are all secondary details.
I was making that face because was it this one I was thinking of now? I think it was the other one, for sure. Because I don't think it was in fact Karma Bhakti or Jnana Yoga. Maybe it is. I don't remember. It's been a while. I've been a little bit and a lot has happened. And Raja Yoga was always never talked about. It's always about karma, bhakti, and jnana yoga, about prioritizing those things. Maybe it is. It's about which one. I don't know. Is it either these or the other one, or both? Because each school prioritizes perhaps one of the yogas. Ugh, it's been a while.
They are very useful, but they are secondary. The thing to do is attain to freedom. What is freedom? Freedom from limitation, freedom from want, freedom from suffering, freedom from smallness, to awaken and attain to our real nature, which is that vast luminosity, that limitless radiance. His brother disciple, Swami Ramakrishnananda, wrote a hymn, Vivekananda Panchakam, 5 verses on Vivekananda. In the first verse, he describes the essence of Vivekananda. He says, Anitya drishyeshu vivichya nityam tasmin samadhatta ihasma leelaya viveka vairagya vishuddha chittam yosau viveki tamaham namami. I salute that Vivekananda. He calls him Viveki, the one who practices and embodies Viveka. But what is Viveka? What does this Viveka mean? Anitya drishyeshu vivichya nityam. Here is the heart of Advaita Vedanta. In this world of flux and ever-changing world, time is passing. Scene after scene is coming before you and disappearing. Our bodies are continuously changing, from birth to babyhood to childhood to teenage and youth and middle age and old age. Our senior most member, Bill Conrad, he is in a senior facility. When he went there, he said, it's not bad, but there's one problem here. And what's the problem? He said, they are all old and decrepit. That's his complaint in the senior facility. And he's 98. So our bodies, they become old and decrepit. And we mustn't laugh, because we'll all get there. We're all getting there to becoming old and decrepit.
No, we're not laughing because we're becoming old and decrepit. But anyways, it's more along the lines of the fact that he sees other people being old and decrepit, but yet he himself is also that and doesn't realize that.
I remember once I was walking bare feet on the cold grass in our main monastery. There was a young novice monk, an old monk there. He used to walk with 2 sticks. He was a very funny old Swami, and he was always full of humor. And he said, put on your sandals. Don't walk bare feet on the wet ground. I said, oh, it's no problem at all. And he said, I still remember, you will learn, young monk, you will learn when you come to my age. Another funny thing about him was, so he used to walk with 2 sticks, he used to walk like this. Now in the Mandukya Upanishad, there is a saying, Soyam Atma Chatushpat. Literally it means the Atman has 4 feet. What it basically means is it has waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and through that you realize the ultimate reality, the underlying that same mass of luminosity which appears as waking, dreaming, deep sleep, the 4th. So, but it said that Atman has 4 feet. And whenever I would see him, I would say, Soyam Atma Chatushpat. Here is the Atman with 4 feet. World is continuously changing, our bodies are changing, and our minds are changing all the time. How much so? From childhood to youth to middle age, our mind, just imagine what your mind was 10 years ago. Just imagine what your mind was like when you were a teenager in high school. We would be very embarrassed to think that, oh, that was me, that's what I thought. It was.
Actually, I'm going to pause it right there. But so far, at least little things I could think about. I can't remember what those 3 things were. Can't remember whether it's the schoolings, the 3 different schoolings there, in terms of duality, which I think it is. It has to be that. Duality, non-duality, and then confirm duality? believe that confirmed. Is it confirmed? Anyways, you hopefully understand what I'm saying, and I can't remember if those has priorities in terms of the different yogas. Man, it's been a minute. The reason why I guess I don't quite remember it because it's not necessarily important. And what I mean by that is that it's not going to affect it's not going to affect how I view or change. It's not going to change how I proceed with my life because I am very much into the four yogas for sure. Well, perhaps not the Raja one because have not meditated. Maybe because Dandapani always talk about why not meditation throughout the day. I have not been actively meditating, but have I been passively meditating? I don't think so. If I have, I don't know, honestly. But anyways, in terms of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, those two being primary, because those are very obvious. Obviously you do actions, you think all the time, or maybe I think too much. I don't know. Those are things that we can purify. Is it Rupert? Anyways, it's about I think it was Rupert talking about how our thoughts come in and out of our minds in a sense, and that we want to reduce negative thoughts and in a sense encourage positive thoughts. So kind of like, I suppose, when someone talks to you that's a complete stranger, instead of having this negativity towards them, it's like, oh my gosh, he's trying to do this or trying to do that, you have kind of at least for me, a neutral perspective. Not positive, not negative. Generally positive, slightly positive, but not negative. Because, I don't think of things necessarily being in a bad way unless you give me a reason for it. I'm not cautious unless you give me a reason for it. But just kind of in a thinking, I want to say forcing myself to think positive thoughts, just having this innate positive thinking or neutral thinking, but not negative thinking, which is something that I do see in a lot of the West. I can only speak for America on just small sections. I don't know how much of this is being a problem, but I'm sure it's growing just because of how easy of a life it is over here. And when I say easy, that's relatively speaking to a lot of the underdeveloped countries. And Americans just have no idea how truly tough it can be. There are some for sure, but majority of the one that's complaining do not know. So anyways, yeah, they tend to think negatively whenever you come up to them or whatever, and you're just being nice and friendly. They have just an automatic negative thoughts. I don't. I try not to. I'll say that. Has it ever come up? Yes, I'm sure it has. I'd be lying if I said no, it never has. No, it definitely has. But has it have recently? I'd say no, probably more than likely. But I wouldn't doubt I've failed a few times. But again, I acknowledge this and I try to be better. Am I getting better? I hope so. I'm not keeping track of the number of mistakes I made. I just, hopefully I understand I made a mistake or I'm not doing something quite right, and I notate that, kinda, and then try to be better. And I follow this with karma yoga and bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga being more along the lines of humanity. So people. If I believe that the universe and everything in it is part of the creation, including myself, then I treat myself like anyone else. And I do understand that obviously we must eat. So just so long as you don't let things suffer, I have no problem with people eating whatever, generally speaking. I know there's gonna be some people that will think of certain things. That's the reason why I say generally speaking. But yeah, and then Jnana Yoga, though, the separation of who you are is your emotions for me, and not necessarily your thoughts, but your thoughts a little bit, but more along the lines of your emotions, because your emotions can cloud your judgment. Can, not all the time, but most of the time, probably. But yes. So again, Raja Yoga, though, is being something I have not really done. Maybe I have. No, I don't actively do it. If I do it unknowingly, that is amazing, but I doubt it. Anyways, that's my reaction so far for part 2 of The Power and Glory, Swami Vivekananda. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.